Hello everybody, and today I'm going to be reviewing Clockwork Prince by Cassandra Clare. This book is basically centered around finding Mortman, and Charlotte and Henry Branwell are given the task to find Mortman's exact location within 2 weeks or risk losing the Institute to Benedict Lightwood, which no one wants to see happen. This book basically follows them while they're trying to learn more about Mortman, what his motives are, and narrowing down where his exact location could be. We see a few new characters in this book, Ragnar Fell and Woosley Scott, I hope I'm saying that right, and Cecily Herondale, I hope I'm saying her name right too, and Gideon Lightwood. I'm not going to talk much about Cecily Herondale because, you know, we don't really see her very much in this at all. But Ragnar Fell, you don't really get to see him in the Mortal Instruments because, well, he dies before you really get to see him. So, in this book he struck me as very odd. I thought he would be a very mature warlock, where you don't really see mature warlocks in this. They're all kind of like Magnus. It's a perverted version of Magnus, a more perverted version at least. Woosley Scott, on the other hand, creeps me out. He's only like 20-some years old, and I loved his character reading him, but he seemed so flamboyant for someone from this time period that it really just creeped me out. Not that I didn't like his character, especially after you see him and Magnus interacting. I really liked him there. The character that I was most excited to learn more about was Gideon Lightwood, which, if you don't know, Gideon is Alec's middle name from the Mortal Instruments. So I was happy to learn a lot more about him and how he's nothing like Gabriel and Benedict, even though I have a feeling we're going to really see a 180 on Gabriel and Clockwork Princess, and I hope we do, because I do like his character. It's just we don't see the best side of him in this book. But Gideon, on the other hand, I really like his character. He's kind of silent. He's silent in a way that makes him seem almost moody, but when you see him interacting with Sophie, it is so cute, and I love them as a couple. So I'm really hoping in Clockwork Prince it'll end well for them, because they're just so cute together, and Sophie deserves to be happy after everything she's been through. I'm also happy to say that my feelings for Will have changed in this book. If you haven't seen my Clockwork Angel review, you won't know that I didn't really like him at all. I kind of almost hated him because he was such a douchebag. But in this book, I'm happy to say that that changed slightly. More towards the end than anything. In the beginning, I still didn't like him much. But towards the end, after he finds out what he finds out, I'm not going to spoil it, but after he finds out a certain something about something happened in his past wasn't real, he became such a better character. And we didn't get to see much of this different character of him because it's kind of punctured like a balloon very soon after he learned about it. But it did make me like his character. It made me more sympathetic with his character, and I'm just really happy that I can now say I like Will Herondale, where before I hated Will Herondale, which was not something I wanted to say about a Herondale at all. Something else I want to talk about is the love triangle is done so well in this book. Normally I hate love triangles, but it is done so well in this book that normally when you have a love triangle, there's like one girl and two boys almost all the time. And there's always one boy that there's just something about him that you cannot stand and you hate about him. So you're obviously going with the other choice of boy. In this one, you have Tessa, Will, and Jem, and you cannot really choose either boy. I mean, in Clockwork Angel, it was obvious you're going to choose Jem because Jem is such a sweetheart and Will is a douchebag. In this book, where after Will changes and becomes more open with everyone, it's just hard to choose between the two. So I'm not sure how I am on the love triangle now. I'm still more of a what's the ship name for Jem and Tessa? Jessa, I think? Yeah, so far I'm still a Jessa fan, but I could swing the other way by the next book. I don't know. Okay, now I'm going to get to the spoilery part of this review, so if you have not read this book, please go read it and then come back and we will discuss. The first thing that really struck me about the book is how they talk about spoils, and we don't really get an in-depth knowledge of spoils in the Mortal Instruments. We hear about them, but we don't really get the gist of them. And we also see a little bit of spoils being mentioned in the Shadowhunters TV show in episode 4, I think, yeah, where Magnus and Alec meet for the first time. We hear about a little there, but not much. In this book, there's like a whole little section of the spoils, and what is his name? I can't really say his name. Elonius Starkweather? I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but he talks about the spoils in depth, mostly his stories about how he got these spoils before they were against the law to do, which after reading some of these, I can see why it was outlawed to do this. It is horrific, some of the spoils that he has in his spoils room, I guess you want to call it. And it is so bad. I do not feel bad for Tessa wanting to get out of there as fast as she could. I probably would have fainted too if I had seen the grotesque things that she had to see, especially given the fact that she's a warlock, and I know that Starkweather didn't know that she was a warlock, but that, no. And afterwards, once she has a nightmare and Will comes into her room comforting her and everything, and he doesn't apologize for what he said on the rooftop, which after finding out about his curse and everything, I can see why, because he didn't want her to feel affection for him in any way. But still, it's not something you say after a girl's been traumatized and wakes up from nightmares screaming. Yeah, it's just not something you do. But thankfully, Tessa doesn't let this, hinder her being able to work with him, which I don't know if I would have been able to do that or not. But then I really started to feel more for Will when he just comes out and basically tells Magnus, yes, I love Tessa. He was just telling Magnus. He had no intention of telling Tessa at all. And we do learn about Will's curse. Him, a 12-year-old little boy, opening a box in his parents' or in his father's study or library. I can't remember which. And what child won't do that? I mean, hell, most teenagers do that. It's like we see something that our parents obviously don't want us to know about and obviously don't want us to open. We do it anyways. But finding out about that curse and how his sister protected him and everything, it was really heartbreaking, especially considering the fact that he runs away soon after, and even though his parents find him, he can't bear for them to see him because he thinks that the curse will kill them, which it's nice to know that later on we find out, well, Will actually just runs into the demon randomly at the Lightwood party and goes chasing after him, and soon after Magnus has the ability to summon him, and they get the whole truth of the story about how he didn't have the power to actually curse Will at the time, but he knew he had poisoned his sister, so he went along with the whole curse thing, and the fact that his sister died from the demon's poisoning soon that night really just drove it home, and Will actually believed he was cursed, which what 12-year-old boy wouldn't, especially when he had no training in the shadow world. Bad parenting. One thing that I thought was cute was Will keeping Tessa's letters. I mean, yes, it was an invasion of privacy, and yes, he should have gave them back to her instead of keeping them hidden on his bookshelf, but I really thought it was cute that he kept her letters to read them. Again, such an invasion of privacy, but it was, a very cute invasion of privacy. And then, oh my god, we get to Tessa and Jem's first kiss in this book, and oh my god, you would not expect the year to be 1878 the way they were kissing and doing more. Yeah, I'm kind of very, very glad that she knocked over his yin-fin, I think is what it's called, the drug. I'm kind of glad she knocked that over and stopped it when it was happening. I mean, I wanted to continue so bad, but I also didn't want it to, because it's like, what would really, we don't really know if she is, so we don't know if she would be able to get pregnant or not, and if that's something that we don't need at this point in time. Third book, maybe, not in this one. So I'm kind of glad that came to a stop, but I was also very sad that it did. And then, of course, we have one of the conditions the council set for Charlotte was the fact that Sophie, Jessamine, and Tessa, not so much Jessamine though, were going to be trained by the Lightwood boys since Benedict offered them. So Gabriel and Gideon Lightwood are going to be training the girls. Well, after a couple lessons, we finally figure out why Gabriel hates Will so much. And it's kind of a justified hatred, but it isn't at the same time. I mean, they were kids, so, I mean, finding a girl's diary and reading it in front of a crowd of people, you know, would piss any brother off. Especially when she goes out of the room crying. And then you getting your butt kicked and having your arm broken. Okay, I'm not very on Will's side in this. I'm pretty much on Gabriel's side. It is a pretty long time to be, you know, hating on somebody for this. He really should just let the past go, but I can kind of see why he's pissed as long as he is. And then we also find out why the Lightwoods hate the Fairchilds so much. And when I first read it, I didn't believe it because, I mean, from what we learn of Charlotte's father, I don't really like him. He's not a very good Fairchild from the Fairchilds I've seen, but then I didn't like Jocelyn either, so not gonna judge. I don't know the guy. But the fact that Gabriel was telling him that the Fairchilds were the reason for his uncle's and his mother's death, or suicides on both counts actually, I felt bad, but I still didn't believe it. And I kind of understood the animosity between them now. But when Jim brings it up with Charlotte, she tells him that if that was the case, then her father wouldn't ask to help write the eulogy. And that really struck it home. I was like, okay, if he helped write the eulogy, he definitely had nothing to do with this. There's something deeper and darker going on in this, which we do find out later, thank goodness, because I hate mysteries, especially when I can't see them coming. And oh my goodness, when we get to the part of the masquerade ball that Benedict Lightwood is having in his house, and Jessamine's the only one invited, no one else of the Shadowhunters know, and we find out the truth of what has been going on. We've seen, or Sophie and Tessa have both seen Jessamine leaving the Institute dressed as a man, and I can never really, I was giving her the benefit of doubt and saying that maybe she was sneaking out to try to find Nate and all them and get as much information as she can. So I was giving her the benefit of the doubt and thinking the best of her, even though I didn't like her. But when we learned the real reason why she was sneaking out, I felt sorry for her, but I didn't at the same time. She deserves everything she's gonna get, even though I really do feel sorry for her, especially after she's thrown in the Silent City and Tessa has like that little dream sequence and she finds out even the wedding ring that Nate gave her is fake, so that everything about their relationship was fake. And you really get the feeling that she did love Nate, if nothing else, because he was a mundane. So I felt for Jessamine, and I hope that the council does go lenient on her. I'm hoping that if nothing else, they demote her or something. I don't know if you can demote a shadow hunter or not, but she doesn't want to be a shadow hunter, so stripping her marks wouldn't really be a bad thing in her view. So I don't see them doing that. I'm really worried about what they will do to her. And then we also have Tessa and Will's second kiss after she's already kissed Jem. And I know that Magnus told them that they were, you know, which would explain Will's, you know, reaction to the drug and the kiss and everything, but really wouldn't explain why Tessa went with it. I mean, Will, he drank like a whole glass. She like took a sip of it. That's it. Anyways, I thought it was so funny. They got caught kissing twice. By the first time, we don't know who they are, but they said, see, that's why you don't drink the pink drinks. But then Magnus has to save the day. And not long after he gets them out of the situation he's in, Will goes tearing after that demon, and, you know, afterwards he has the tooth and he has to show up he shows up at Magnus's house hoping that he can get help to track the demon, and Magnus will just be able to do it right away, which he can't. But Will collapses from the demon poison, and Magnus of course has to save him again. But while this was going on, Camille actually returns. And turns out Magnus had been looking into her exact location, he tracked her through Walker, one of her other human subjugates, and the way he basically really stood up to her, and basically he really just lied to her and said he was with Will, even kissed Will in front of her, which, you know, thank God Will didn't think that was reality. He thought that was like a dream or something. It was just nice how Magnus did that to her after she basically tore his heart out and stomped all over it. I liked Camille until that part, and now I hate her like I hated her in the Mortal Instruments series. And then, not long after that, they used this mortal sword on Jessamine to get the truth from her, and it turns out that she has a block on her mind, which is why Tessa couldn't really get a feel for her when he changed into her for the party at Benedict Lightwood's. Kind of made me feel really bad using the mortal sword on her the way they were. And even Brother Ekon, or whatever his name is, I can't really say his name, after he said that her heart was going to give out if they interrogated her any longer, I really, really felt bad for her. I was like, you know, she might not even realize the extent of what she's done. Although I think she does, you know, it's the possibility. I'm still giving her the benefit of the doubt even though I don't like her. And then we have one of the 2 fights in the book. This book seriously pissed me off because I only had like 2 fights. One was with one Automanton. I don't know how to say the word. But the one battle was between them and one of the metal creatures when they showed up at Ravenscar Manor to basically see why Mortman had the house in the first place. And after Starkweather said it was, you know, abandoned, they didn't expect to actually find people there, let alone Will's family, who've been living there for a couple years, apparently, according to Ragnar Fell. It just made me think, how long has Mortman been thinking out these plans of his? And it also made me think, oh crap, poor Will. But then we have the second battle that happens. They're fighting this 20-foot robot, and Tessa does some quick thinking to change into Nate and commands the robot to basically grab and detain her brother, which it does. But then Will finally gets this machine of Henry's working, I'm not sure exactly what they called it, and basically blows the thing up. And Will gets severely injured while helping Tessa. Nate ends up dying, which I'm not sad to see him go, but I am at the same time because he had a lot of information that they needed. And then Tessa passes out from both the shock and blood loss. And then we get near the end of the book when Jem asks Tessa to marry him. I had a little bit of anxiety when that happened because it's like, I know she has feelings for Will and I know she has feelings for Jem, but I think her feelings for Will are more intense. But at this point, she doesn't know about the curse that was on Will, and she doesn't believe that he likes her in that way, and she kind of feels mad at herself for liking him in that way considering everything he said to her. So she says yes to marrying Jem, and I'm kind of happy for both of them, but I'm sad at the same time because all she can do is think about Will. And then it's especially heartbreaking after Will tells her that he loves her and about the curse and why he was the way he was. And it made it even more heartbreaking how Will basically fumbles himself out of the room after Tessa says she loves Jem, and Tessa didn't even know she collapsed by the fire. And she couldn't cry. Even though she felt like crying, she couldn't cry, and she takes the poker that was in the fire and burns her hand, making her cry. Then towards the end of the book, where they blackmailed Benedict because they find out that he has demon pox, which you get this funny little song from Will that I'm not going to sing about how he was right and they were wrong about demon pox the whole time, and it just made me crack up. And they find out that's how Gabriel and Gideon Lightwood's mother died in the first place, was because she found out she contracted the disease and that her husband was the cause of it, and she slit her wrist because of that. So it was all his fault the whole time. Which they do find out how to get a message to Gideon Lightwood about that, and he's on their side when they get there to blackmail his father. But Gabriel, who knows nothing about it, of course doesn't leave with him. He's still on his father's side. But I do think he had some doubts since his brother turned his back on the family, gave up his family ring and everything. So I do think there's some doubts in Gabriel that may come to light in the next book. And then, you know, they basically blackmail Benedict into making sure that Charlotte gets to stay as head of the Institute. He was very, very reluctant to do, and basically told him they couldn't prove anything, even with the mortal sword, so there's definitely blocks on his mind. But after learning that they know what actually happened to his wife, he's all in for giving them what they want, because he doesn't want his son or the council to know exactly what happened. And then we actually get to the point where he tells the council, and the council has to vote who they want to run the Institute. And of course Charlotte wins I mean, there was no doubt about that. Then we get to the celebration dinner they have, and of course you have to have announcements with celebration dinners. And one of the announcements comes from Jem, a very, very happy Jem, about him and Tessa being engaged. And it broke my heart when Will stood up when everybody was silent and gave them a toast. And I cried a little bit because I was like, you know, that's breaking him on the inside, but he's still doing it because he loves Jem and he loves Tessa, and he's just gonna be happy for them. And then on a slightly happier note, we learn that Charlotte is pregnant. But it was real funny. Let me see if I can find the quote. After Charlotte tells Henry that she's pregnant, he picks her up and waltzes her around the room, and then he stops suddenly and carries her back to a chair. And after she tells him, I'm capable of walking, even dancing, he's like, my darling, you are indisposed. You must remain abed for the next 8 months. Little Buford. And she's like, I am not naming my child Buford. And after this happy announcement, they have a visitor. And I did not expect this at all. Cecily Herondale, Will's sister, shows up. She's 15 years old, and she just shows up out of the blue and says she's come to the Institute to be trained as a shadow hunter. Overall, I'm very happy with the second book. It kind of started out slow for me. It took me probably about 100 pages to 150 to get into the book, but I liked it a lot better than I liked Clockwork Angel. Well, that is it for this video. Please let me know what you guys thought of this book in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!